people coming in. But we'll begin our sutta for this evening. And this sutta is one that I have only just opened and looked at. And it was chosen by Casey, and she did a very good job, I must say, in choosing something very rich and very relevant and helpful, I think, to all of us. Here it's addressed to a clansman. And I always like to broaden it out because I certainly don't identify as a clansman. I don't know about anyone else here. But we think it basically means a layperson. So a clansman is obviously somebody belonging to a certain clan. These days, I don't know. I feel I belong to the human clan, if there is a clan. But of course, the Dhamma is always very universal, completely universal. And this will relate more to lay life, perhaps, but still the principles will apply to all who are seeking a way out of suffering and a lot of meaning and happiness in their life. And this is from the Book of Eights in the Anguttara Nikaya. So that means there are 8 points to it. A little bit ambitious for a short discussion group. We'll see how far we go. And it was given to a person called Diga Janu. So that's the name of the sutta. Here they also refer to him by the name Bhyagapadja, which is probably, I haven't looked in the footnotes, but it's probably either a colloquial name or a more formal name. It's basically the same person. So I have Anagārikā Upacālā next to me, who is going to very kindly start reading the sutta. And at any time during this discussion, you can raise your virtual hand. We will pause and come to you at a suitable time. And we will also pause periodically to see if there are any comments, questions, or, as Ajahn Brahm says, complaints. He calls it the 3 C's. Of course, question is written with a Q, but anyway. Comments, questions, complaints. I think we thought of another one. Compliments. We'll have that as well. Compliments to the Buddha, not to us. All right. So it should be participatory. And if you don't want your voice to be on the recording, please write in the chat. If you don't mind your voice being on the recording, you want to make it come alive for the people who listen, don't worry, your video won't be there. The video will remain on us. So that is the orientation. So shall we begin?
Did you mention Digha Nikaya 58? No, what am I doing? I just
Book of Eights.
Anguttara Nikaya.
Number 54.
And the Book of Eights, 54. There you go. Somebody usually puts that up
In the chat.
Okay. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling among the Kolyans near the Kolyan town named Kakarapata. There the young Kolyan Digha Janu approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side, and said to him, Bhante, we are laymen enjoying sensual pleasures, living at home in a house full of children. We use sandalwood from Kasi. We wear garlands, scents, and unguents. We receive gold and silver. Let the Blessed One teach us the Dhamma in a way that will lead to our welfare and happiness in this present life and in future lives. And the Buddha replies, there are Bhyagapadja, these 4 things that lead to welfare and happiness of a layperson in this present life. What 4? Accomplishment in initiative, accomplishment in protection, good friendship, and balanced living. And what is accomplishment in initiative? Here, whatever may be the means by which a layperson earns their living, whether by farming, trade, raising cattle, archery, government service, or some other craft. They're skillful and diligent. They possess sound judgment about it in order to carry out and arrange it properly. This is called an accomplishment initiative. And what is accomplishment in protection? Here, a layperson sets up protection and guard over the wealth they have acquired by initiative and energy, amassed by the strength of their arms, earned by the sweat of their brow, righteous wealth righteously gained, thinking, how can I prevent kings and thieves from taking it, fire from burning it, floods from sweeping it off, and displeasing airs from taking it. This is called accomplishment in protection.
Okay. Shall we pause there? Because the next one's quite different, isn't it? We could do, the next one's really different. And the first two seem to follow on from each other. So we have the initiative and then actually protecting whatever we've acquired through that initiative. So that's quite interesting. The thing that stuck out to me straight away was that sometimes people might mistake protecting something for attachment.
Mm-hmm.
Or they might think that, if you have something, if you have wealth, or if you have beautiful plants in your monastery, that you shouldn't really be too bothered about whether they live or they die, right? But actually here it seems to be saying to me that one has some kind of moral responsibility, in a sense, to actually take care of the things that are valuable, that we've acquired in a proper way, that we've earned through our own efforts. And actually, that's interesting too, like preventing other people from taking it. So is that because it's ours? Is that because, we are attached to it and we don't want to share it? Or is that for another reason? It's bringing to mind a story that my first teacher in Nepal told me, which was not really a story, but he told me that even though the retreat center there in Nepal, it was in a beautiful place called Buddha in the Kathmandu Valley. It was a Goenka Vipassana center on a hill, on a mountain, really. Took quite a bit of getting to. And I used to spend about 3 or 4 months, actually about 5 months a year there for about 7 or so years between my life in India. And we all felt it was so safe. We were like, we don't need to lock the doors, we don't need to worry about valuables. I think you handed your valuables in anyway to some kind of safe. But he gave another perspective, which was that locking your door would prevent anybody from breaking their sila. And I think, because it was a fairly poor country and that was a village area where people certainly lived pretty much off the land, he had a point, that maybe it's not necessarily because you are so attached to your belongings, but maybe sometimes it's just a deterrent to people who might do wrong. And thereby that helps them protect their own virtue as well, which I thought quite interesting. So I don't know, it comes to mind when I read this. Yeah.
Something came up when you were just talking.
Yeah.
I shouldn't keep yammering on.
Yes, you can. I'm sure people would love to.
I was thinking about the recollections of for monastics to take care of their robes, take care of their alms bowl. It's like what you have, you want to look after,
right?
So that you're not kind of flippant with what you do have.
Yeah,
and so you don't have to keep having to use your. I mean, for a layperson, use your money to buy more things simply because you've been careless.
That's a good point. Yeah, you don't need to get more and more and more. You're taking care of the things you do have, and in a way, you're grateful for them, right? You're grateful and appreciative, and they mean something to you. If they don't mean anything to you, perhaps you can minimize. Actually, Alina was here earlier. She's one of our trustees, and she said that even though she thinks she doesn't have much in her house, she keeps on getting rid of stuff and realizing there's still so much. And I know her. She doesn't have a luxurious life in any way. I think she's very frugal, but still, you can always simplify. So this might mean, that you're happy and have enough. Whatever maybe, and the first one, one is skillful and diligent in whatever they're doing, whatever it is. That's interesting too, because I think it doesn't matter so much what we do, Sometimes in our kind of, I don't know, commercial world, or I don't know, world where status and power seems to mean too much, some jobs are seen as more valuable than others. But actually, during the COVID pandemic, we realized which jobs really matter. And it was things like healthcare, having your dustbins taken out, people growing food and still delivering food to people, the people who bring the food, doing, the supermarket delivery people. I mean, sometimes they were the only people you get to talk to, and you realize how valuable they were. And really, it doesn't matter what we do so much as how we do it, being skillful and diligent, possessing sound judgment about it in order to carry it out and arrange it properly. So judgment is also a kind of discernment, isn't it? Like knowing how to do it, knowing the purpose of what you're doing, knowing how it's benefiting others, how it can bring more benefit to others. And then what we do seems to have meaning. And that's what it means by taking initiative. So that's quite useful, I would say. I mean, not only for lay people, but also in monastery. We have to be very diligent about the way we use our resources so as not to be a burden on the lay community that support us. And we hope we're doing that. Please let us know if we're not. And I'm thinking of protecting things like our health as well. Sometimes I think monastics don't get enough exercise, and then we end up being a burden because we have all kinds of health issues. So protecting whatever we have. Yeah. Are there any thoughts or questions or comments around this so far? Because I'm just aware that many of you have all kinds of various professions. How do you relate to that? Nothing so far? Then we may continue.
Right.
So number 3.
Lucy. And what is good friendship? Here, in whatever village or town a layperson lives, they associate with householders or their children, whether young but of mature virtue, or old and of mature virtue, who are accomplished in faith, virtuous behavior, generosity, and wisdom. They converse with them and engage in discussions with them. Insofar as they are accomplished in faith, they emulate
them.
They emulate them with respect to their accomplishment in faith. Insofar as they are accomplished in virtuous behavior, they emulate them with respect to their accomplishment in virtuous behavior. Insofar as they are accomplished in generosity, they emulate them with respect to their accomplishment in generosity. Insofar as they are accomplished in wisdom, they emulate them with respect to their accomplishment in wisdom. This is called good friendship.
Yeah. I think we should pause there too. I love reading about good friendship. I don't know how that feels for other people. Whether young but of mature virtue, or old and of mature virtue. So here it's not about the age of a person. That's kind of interesting to me, because I think often we judge people, don't we, based on their age. And then, especially if we are older and we sort of think we know everything and we have a lot to teach the younger generation, maybe some of us are parents and we want to sort of, give the child a sense that we're in control, or that we know what's right, or we know what we're doing. We actually miss out on learning from our kids. We miss out on learning from the young generation who do things differently and who have more to teach us in many, many ways. I mean, I know from being in a monastery that there's certain things that, I grew up with, which other people didn't, like cooking and, being more connected to the earth, I have to say, being more hands-on, writing, handwriting, various things that are sort of fading away, really, with the use of technology and the like. But then the young people also have a lot to teach me about technology and social media and how to use it skillfully, how to use it with ease and not getting stressed out about whether they're going to blow up the computer if they make the wrong move. But here it's really about the virtue of a person more than anything else. This accomplishment in faith, virtuous behavior, generosity, and wisdom. And then not just admiring them, but actually talking to them, conversing and engaging in discussions, which is great. This is reminds me of one of the blessings in the Mangala Sutta, which is not just to hear the Dhamma, but also to talk about the Dhamma. And when we talk about things, it tends to sink in, doesn't it? It tends to be an opportunity to really analyze and apply these teachings to our lives, which is what I want to, offer here as well, that it's an opportunity to think about these things. And it also goes in. When we've been talking and reflecting on something, it tends to sink in much more deeply to the heart and also become more relevant to our lives. And then the third one, after talking and discussing, is this emulation, right? Emulating a person. So being influenced by them. And sometimes they say in Tibetan Buddhism that it's very heavily reliant on this sort of sense of transmission. And people have, sort of said, oh, in Theravada, transmission doesn't have a place. But Ajahn Brahm sometimes says, yeah, it absolutely has a place. You can say there's a Dhamma transmission happening because in the suttas it says that one of the most important factors, one of two factors actually that are necessary for stream winning, which is the first stage of enlightenment, is your own discernment or maybe insight that goes to the source of things, and the word of another. And the word of another means the word of someone who's seen the truth, who's seen more deeply than we have. So we do get influenced by them. We do have some sort of transmission. We're conditioned by what we're around. And so here the Buddha's not just saying we're conditioned, he's saying actually do emulate them, but only with respect to their accomplishment, insofar as they're accomplished in faith, in virtue. What else? In generosity and in wisdom. Yeah. So in respect to it and insofar as they're accomplished in it. So it's not about, emulating a teacher in every way, right? So again, we have to use our discernment. We see the things that they do that are wise, and we say, yeah, I want to be like that. You don't need to emulate them in things that you don't find so compelling or so wise. So we're not necessarily judging the person and saying, oh, in this way they're weak or in this way they're strong, but we're using our discernment and taking in the good, if you like. So I find that really beautiful. I don't know about you. What happens? Do you copy people? Do you find yourself emulating people in skillful or unskillful ways? Sometimes I find when a teacher's visited, I keep saying the same sentence that they will say. Like, don't worry about it, which is really annoying, actually. But one of our friends who stayed here was saying that quite a lot, and now I say it. And I jump out, and actually, it was quite funny because I told him my niece and the younger generation, they keep going, whatever, all the time. And now he used that as a kind of, I mean, nothing wrong with it. This is just a bit of fun. But he was like, I'd ask him a question. What do you think, Ajahn? Should we do a talk in this place or that place? Whatever. So we do pick up things from each other. Yeah. I'd love to know how that works for anyone here. You're all very quiet so far. Is there something?
I like to when somebody tells me not to worry. That's how my wife works.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Did you hear that? No. I think for the Sutta class, it's much better if you come over here. Come. Yeah.
Encourage me more compassion.
Yeah, because we just can't hear you. Would you like to say it again in a loud voice? Well, we'd have to say it otherwise. Come, Chi. So what did you say? They're waiting for me.
So I do like it when you say don't worry about it because worry less.
Oh, really? Okay, that's interesting. That's another thing I notice in my role, that I have to be careful what I say. Like, that's great. You can have a really positive influence if you say something helpful. But if you say something unhelpful, you also might have more influence than other people would. Because people are looking at you, aren't they? To emulate. So yeah, it's great if that helps you not worry. Ajahn Brahm used to say that to me a lot as well. He'd say, no worries, mate. And sometimes it was really annoying, but other times it's like, oh yeah, maybe he's got a point. Anyway, we're coming to Keith and Sharon. Would you like to contribute something?
Sure. I'm interested to hear, we live in quite a rural community where there aren't a lot of
Yeah.
shared values.
Okay.
And so there's lots of solitude, which is great, and lots of quiet. But there's also a lot of hunting, a lot of fishing, maybe not shared political values.
Mm.
Uh, and I'm just interested. Um, it's far and few between when we come across people that are kind of skilled. And I'm interested. I don't think that's unique for us here.
Yeah.
But I'm just interested on maybe a little guidance or advice
Mm.
on what to do that with that.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that, because I think, like you say, you're not alone in this situation, certainly, and especially in more rural places, perhaps, especially where people haven't had the chance to hear the Dhamma and haven't really thought much about perhaps the wider impact of their actions, such as, hunting or whatever else it might be, thinking about the global um, effect of these things. And yeah, unfortunately, that's probably most people in this world. And in a sense, people who have the opportunity to travel, to hear different kinds of teachings from different cultures are the minority. And I think, for us, we are very fortunate to have an international community. And I think sometimes our community does just have to extend to become more global. And that's something that the Buddha called intentional community. There's a whole chapter on that in Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi's Social and Communal Harmony book. It's really lovely. It talks about, there's a lot about family, there's a lot about friends, but there's also something called intentional community, which is deliberately developing community based around similar views and values. And it's extremely important for the spiritual path because it validates what we're doing. It gives us faith in times when our own faith becomes shaky. And we can see other people going through the ups and downs, but also sometimes telling us their successes, showing us their change. And then we realize, yeah, this path does work in the long term. And there are people in this world doing really, really good things. So I think for me, if I don't find that inspiration in my immediate environment, either I can join this kind of community or I can actually practice a kind of sympathetic joy, just bringing to mind the people in the world who really serve in whatever way that, matters to you. For example, some of the people that inspire me are people that go out to disaster areas where there's famine, where there's war. People are even going out to Gaza and, working as doctors when there's almost no hope for them to get the proper medical equipment or medicine for people, but they know that there are people there still desperate and clinging on to life. And I read about one person who was from another country, I don't remember where, a doctor who said, as long as there's life, we'll stay. As long as there are people who need us, we're not leaving, no matter what, even though the bombs are falling around him, And I just find this incredibly inspiring and it gives me a lot of hope. So I think, whatever you see happening in the world that's wrong, there's always the counterbalance to that. There's a lot that's happening that's good. And if we can't contact it in our social circles directly, we can contact it through either reading about these things or actually thinking about it in our meditation and rejoicing with that, rejoicing with the goodness in the world. And then as well, I suppose, learning to understand that people behave the way they do because of the conditions they find themselves in and because of the influences around them. And if they haven't had those influences, then that's not their fault. We can still be kind. We can still set a good example to them. It's almost as though sometimes we're in the role of being the example setter. Sometimes we're in the role of being fortunate enough to have people to emulate. When we don't have that many people to emulate, then maybe we can be the one for others to emulate in some respect. So that's a few thoughts that come to mind. Yeah. I hope that's helpful in some way. But please ask again anything that comes to mind. I think I'll go for the first one in the chat that came first, I think.
You don't read it out.
That's okay. It's like when Casey would say, we have time. And it felt like time did slow down. And so I use it now too. It takes away worry, stress, and anxiety. Oh, yeah, that's nice. We have time. We have time. That's one of those golden principles. There was a talk Ajahn Brahm gave on the retreat, and he said, basically, you need mindfulness, kindness, and patience. patience. We have time. Yeah, I like to think when I sit down, I like to think I have all the time in the world, even if I don't have long at all. But at this moment, I have all the time in the world to settle my body, to prepare my mind for meditation. And just somehow time seems to slip away at that point. And you're right, it relieves the worry, stress, and anxiety. So great, beautiful that you could take something from that. So can I come to Sean and then I'll go back to the chat?
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, just a couple of things. So first of all, thank you for bringing this sitter up, because as a layperson, it's quite nice to see something. You tend to focus on restraint and think, oh, I need to do all those other things, which can sometimes be a bit extreme to daily life. And so it's nice to see actually something that feels a bit more practical, and actually it's okay, some of the things I do that aren't so restraining and like say a monastic or something like that. So that was the first thing, and so the sutta is really useful. But when you also asked about friendship and the people you surround yourself with, something I've come to learn is how you, even if you think you're not, you're influenced by people around you. And even just having been on retreat at the weekend and being around good people, in terms of sila and practicing, and had, obviously it's lovely to spend some time and see Ajahn Brahm, and just the embodiment of you and him, and being easygoing, and it really inspired me and taught me a lot of lessons just by the being, and it's kind of like tipped over to me also subconsciously. And so, and I suppose this is, like the Buddha said, right, it's good friendship is all of the path, right? So yeah, definitely, they were just the things that popped to mind.
Yeah, lovely. That's in a way even more than like conscientiously emulating or picking up on a phrase, but almost what I meant, not really transmission, but more like osmosis, just kind of sensing the energy and having an energetic kind of shift by being around someone who is peaceful, who's calm, who takes things a bit easy. You mentioned the time, although I did try to keep Ajahn on track. Some degree, but there was a looseness around that as well, and there was some flexibility during the day. So yeah, that's great. And I guess like it says here, we pick up those things in a way with respect to what the other person shows us, but maybe also we pick up what we actually need. Like everyone in that room would have picked up something different that they at that time, and but the fundamental underlying confidence, I guess, that we have is in the virtue of the people we emulate. There's a people, and you can feel it. Like you came to stay with us, Sean, a couple of years ago, and you were surprised that I remembered that when you left, you said, wow, just by being there, my speech improved, my general way of thinking improved, just from being around other people who live virtuously. And it was the same for everyone. It's not like they were all, more advanced than you. It's just when there's a group of people who are all trying their best to live virtuously, it's almost like there's an accountability happening, and also an inspiration, I think. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out.
Thank you.
It's like you sort of marinade in that energy. Yeah. Okay, so there's a question in the box. The spiritual quality related to finance that I appreciate is appreciation, because joy appreciates in value. I had a question regarding something Ajahn Brahm said on retreat and don't know the proper time to ask. I brought up merits of mudita that were conducive. Okay, so for people who don't know, mudita is like appreciative joy. So what I spoke about to Shannon about bringing up the goodness in the world, bringing up the idea of people doing good or people who are happy through virtuous means, and just rejoicing with that, allowing that to cause some uplift in the mind and heart. So the merits of mudita, or the sympathetic joy, that were conducive for harmony and freedom from discontent. And I was quoting the suttas, but he said, if only that were true. Does anyone remember that? I'm confused what he meant. Could someone help me understand out of compassion at the right time? Of course. The merits of mudita that were conducive for harmony and freedom from discontent. And you were quoting the suttas, and he said, if only that were true. Interesting. You know, sometimes when teachers say things, it's not like a universal or a definite stance. Sometimes it's just to temper something they see in you, that maybe to bring it to a more realistic perspective. I don't know, because I don't know where he was coming from. I don't remember the exact quote. I have a vague memory, but I just wonder if that might have been going on there to some extent. You know, that there's a place for mudita, and also sometimes it isn't the case that, you know, everybody's working for the good, or, you know, we can bring somebody out of suffering completely in that way. Maybe it's also the case that it sometimes takes longer. So I can't really say, but I think when we receive these kind of bits, either we just set them aside when we don't understand, or we let them percolate, and there might be something to it that you'll come to know in time. So I can't really say more than that, because it didn't come out of my mouth. If anyone else has any idea, yeah, let it percolate, I would say. The bit about emulation reminded me of a simile of the dirty and damaged cloth, making use of the good bits and ignoring the bad. I think tuning into good and remembering the good in people helps ease the mind. Remembering the bad unsettles it. Well, it does for me. Yeah, and that's the important thing, that it does for you, right? It's what effect are these contemplations having on your mind? You know, how is that helping or actually exacerbating the problem? And I think, yeah, sometimes tuning into the good when there is enough good to tune into, and resourcing ourselves in that way, can really aid our attitude and relationship with somebody. Other times it might not be advisable. You know, if you're in a relationship that's abusive, if you're around people that you really don't trust, but you're just trying to find something to trust, even against your own instincts, it might not be very wise, right? And it doesn't mean you have to judge the person as a bad person, but it is about how that is affecting you. So it's not to change our experience as such, but to kind of turn the mind to a more wholesome way of perceiving and seeing if that helps. Sometimes that is enough to solve the problem. Sometimes the problem is not in the other person or in the situation, it's in our attitude, it's in our view. So yeah, great. I mean, here it's not necessarily talking about somebody's bad qualities, but it's definitely saying to emulate them insofar as that, you know, emulate them in virtue insofar as they're accomplished in virtue. Emulate them in generosity insofar as they're accomplished in generosity. So, you know, as far as that goes, you emulate them. Maybe you can go even further, right? Maybe you can stand on the shoulders of your teachers. I remember Ajahn Brahm telling you to do that. Thinking, what? Stand on the shoulders of my teacher, who I feel is just so, you know, inspirational, and my practice is not as deep. But bit by bit, you realize there's qualities in you that are also very developed. There's qualities in them that you can still really look up to. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know. Anything else on that from you? Tuning into the good, or
Yeah, I think if we're learning from qualities that have been or things that people have done that have hurt us, then it's fine to take that learning, but not to dwell on it. Like if there's something to learn from it, great, learn from it and move forward. That's my opinion on that.
yeah. All right. Shall we keep reading? Ready for some more? All right, number 4.
And what is balanced living? Here, a layperson knows their income and expenditures and leads a balanced life, neither too extravagant nor too frugal. It has in brackets aware. So they're aware, in this way, my income will exceed my expenditures rather than the reverse. Just as an appraiser or his or their apprentice holding up a scale knows, by so much it has dipped down, by so much it has gone up. So a layperson knows their income and expenditures and leads a balanced life, neither too extravagant nor too frugal. Aware, in this way, my income will exceed my expenditures rather than the reverse. If this layperson has a small income but lives luxuriously, others would say to them,
Say of them.
This layperson eats his wealth just like an eater of figs. But if they have a large income but live sparingly, others would say of them, this layperson may even starve themselves. But it is called balanced living when a layperson knows their income and expenditures and leads a balanced life, neither too extravagant nor too frugal. Aware, in this way, my income will exceed my expenditures rather than the reverse. The wealth thus amassed has 4 sources of dissipation.
Drain.
Yeah,
Bhante Sujato said drain here.
Yeah, so it's
4 sources by which
your
it
wealth.
drained. It's just another word.
And those 4 sources are womanizing, drunkenness, gambling, and bad friendship. Bad companionship, bad comradeship. Just as if there were a large reservoir with 4 inlets and 4 outlets, and a person would close the inlets and open the outlets, and sufficient rain does not fall, one could expect the water in the reservoir to decrease rather than increase. So the wealth thus amassed has 4 sources of dissipation: womanizing, drunkenness, gambling, and bad. And bad friendship, bad companionship, bad comradeship. The wealth thus amassed has 4 sources of accretion. What was the other?
Increase.
Increase.
Like that for increase.
Sources of increase. One avoids womanizing, drunkenness, and gambling, and cultivates good friendship, good companionship, good comradeship. Just as if there were a large reservoir with 4 inlets and 4 outlets, and a person would open the inlets and close the outlets, and sufficient rain falls, one could expect the water in the reservoir to increase rather than decrease. So the wealth amassed has 4 sources of increase. One avoids womanizing, drunkenness, gambling, and bad friendship, bad comradeship, bad companionship, and bad comradeship. These are
It
the
actually
4.
says one avoids womanizing and cultivates good friendship.
Oh, whoops. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. And cultivates. Oh, where is the cultivation part?
There.
There was the other thing. Cultivates. There was another
Am I
part that
wrong?
said no. There was another part that had all the cultivating parts. I've lost it now. Anyway, we cultivate good friendship.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing, right? It's avoid the bad friendship, but not enough. Maybe cultivate
Yeah.
good friendship too. Yeah.
There are 4. These
are-
are the 4 things that lead to the welfare and happiness of a layperson in this very life.
Awesome. Yeah, let's pause. That's a lot, isn't it? I love this eater of figs business. This person eats their wealth just like an eater of figs. I don't know. Have you ever found a fig tree and gorged on the figs? I like that. So interesting, right? That it's not just about saving either. It's more about enjoying the wealth in a balanced way and living within your means. Yeah. Oh, we have a mention in the box. I rather think capitalism has provided us with many new and novel sources of dissipation that weren't around in the Buddha's day. Yeah. And also many sources of not increasing our wealth, but stealing it, kind of, what's the word? Exploitation as well as dissipation. Yeah. Very true. I don't know. They did have gambling and drunkenness. I wonder what other ones they have now. I don't know.
got telemarketing scams.
Oh yeah, we got a lot of scams.
Email scams.
Yeah. Subscriptions.
Various uses.
Oh, to Anagārikā. No, that's not a subscription. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. it is. Yeah. So what do we think about that? It's nice, isn't it? Thinking about the inlets and the outlets. 4 inlets and 4 outlets. Interesting that it talks about womanizing as the first. So even in those days, that was more common than, is there such a word, manizing?
I don't think it is. Probably because it's not really a problem. Infidelity.
Infidelity.
It's more like people
I don't think.
preying on women.
Yeah, somebody's asking. Well, I think womanizing is different because, you know, infidelity is when you're cheating. Womanizing is like taking somebody out and spending all your money on them. That's what it's talking about. It's talking about where the money goes, right? So they're kind of trying to flaunt their cash to impress somebody. I don't know. Yeah. So, any comments or questions? Okay, what does womanizing mean? I'm on the spectrum, so it's like being on an anthropologist on Mars. What is and what isn't womanizing when associating with women? Any women like to share their understanding of that?
I think it's like treating a woman like she's an object. That's what I get from the word womanizing. That's the context that I've heard it used. Treating someone like she's an object
For your own
pleasure
or entertainment.
or entertainment. Yeah.
Can you put your hands up when you've got something to say? Because it might affect the mic. Yeah. And I also think womanizing is it's probably unwanted advances.
Mhm.
So that's where it might be necessary to read the signs. And sometimes if you're not able to do that, keep checking for consent, keep checking, you know, is it appropriate to ask such and such, you know, do you want to spend time with me? And if they say no, actually, then okay. Womanizing. I think it's also to do with being I mean, I think you're right about the objectifying, but I mean, I know one person who I would call a womanizer, and it's the fact that they go from woman to woman to woman to woman and just try it on again and again with different people. And you come to the point where you realize they're not interested in the person. They're not, you know, they're interested in a bit of fun or objectifying or yeah, their own pleasure. I don't know. I mean, I'm a non, so luckily it hasn't happened for a very long time. That's really helpful. Anyone else like to share? I don't know.
That sounds.
Can you, wait for me to come to you? Yeah. 'Cause, yeah, sure, go. There's nothing else.
I was saying it sounds like the context I'm familiar with the term womanizing is when somebody is pursuing many different women,
Yeah.
maybe at the same time, and yes, there's not really valuing any of them per se. Exactly what you both said.
Yeah, but I think in this context it also is related to the loss of wealth, right? So it could also be taking them out and spending lots and yeah. Okay, when womanizing, you might spend lots of time, money, and energy to get and encourage women to have sex with you, but it could be men too. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it might not always be from men also. Women might womanize others as well. Or menize. You say that?
Manners.
Flirt with? I don't, it's a new word. But I think it's yeah, it's with an agenda, isn't it? Definitely. Here we have another one. I would guess in this context, it might be referring to something like using your wealth to attract a partner, or exploiting your economic resources to get sexual relations in other ways, including even prostitution. Could be, yeah. And I'm just thinking about some of these very rich billionaires that seem to have a kind of trophy wife, and they kind of attract them through sort of promising everything, and then they do a prenup, you know, or something, and then they kind of keep them in place while they go out with loads of other women. So it's a kind of very narcissistic thing, actually. It's a kind of have everything for yourself without really respecting the woman. But anyway, maybe that's enough about womanizing, because this is it when a billionaire loses most of their wealth when the wife leaves them and gets half? No, I don't think so. I think the womanizing is like the coming on to somebody inappropriately, and I think it's okay if you know, there's a sort of shared wealth when the couple split, but that's between them, I suppose. Yeah, I think that's a different thing. Yeah. There's some names coming up in the box, but I think we all know plenty of people we could use as examples. But I think we always talk in the Dhamma about the action rather than the person, at least as far as we can. But of course, we have examples of that. And sometimes you can find people not to emulate, right? Just as we find people we want to emulate, there are people in the world that can teach us what not to be, how not to be, and we can see the consequences not only for the people around them, but for them. And that's where compassion comes in. You damage the social fabric when you womanize our connections and trust. We damage the social fabric when we womanize our connections and trust. So I'm not sure I understand that.
Abuse or taking advantage of connections and trust.
Exploit. We damage our connections and damage trust. Yeah, definitely. We're not coming from a respectful place. Yeah. Okay. Anything else on this paragraph, this whole page? How do you live? Do you live in a balanced way? Do you spend too much? Are you too stingy? Do you live within your means? How do we do that? It's the same question monastics have in a way. Like, how do we really appreciate the resources that are offered to us? You know, we don't kind of just leave good things in the cupboard and ignore them, because some people might want us to use them or to eat them and not let them expire. But at the same time, we don't want to be luxurious and get used to a higher standard of living than our supporters can sustain. Ajahn Brahm used to say we shouldn't be living at a higher, what would you say, a higher level or a higher standard of living than our supporters. But of course, our supporters are from all different social means. So sometimes if I feel there is an abundance of food, which is almost every day, I kind of think about other people who don't have so much food, and I use it in the best way I can, you know, not to stimulate greed, but to sustain my body so that I can practice and be of benefit to others. So I eat what's healthy for me. I eat in moderation as far as I can. And this is a constant training actually for the monastics. So maybe it's not so much about wealth, but it's certainly about food. And of course, you're frugal in various ways around the cold. I remember one of the senior nuns from Ravati came to visit me just about 2 weeks ago. And she said that she lives quite frugally and her supporters are insisting she puts the heating on. She lives in a very cold place and they're really insisting that she starts spending more money, because sometimes, you know, other people are getting cold in the monastery. So we have to find this way of comfort, but not indulgence and not austerity. It reminds me a bit of the middle path when we were reading about the balance. I was thinking a lot about, you know, the middle path, this place between the two. But actually, the middle path, really, the place between the two, means going inwards and going deep into meditation. But still, we have to kind of, you know, try and avoid those two extremes. I think it's interesting that the Sutta emphasizes that there's a danger in being too frugal on our own expense by bringing up what people might think of us. It's not the perspective I expected. Right. Interesting, yeah. I guess it might be when somebody is thinking about us that way, it might be that the way they think about us could be a pointer. Perhaps it's pointing to being part of a community, part of a society, and sort of living in a way that's deemed acceptable. So I think that's something that is quite foreign to a lot of people in the West who haven't come from communal societies, that we don't tend to take those kind of tips from others. It's like, I do things my way. Why should it matter what other people think? And maybe there's something to that, that if the general perspective of people around you sort of point towards you being too frugal, maybe there's something there to listen to. Maybe they're wrong, but maybe we could give it some thought. And yeah, being too frugal, I guess the thing that comes to mind for me is that perhaps we could be bordering on stinginess, if we're too frugal and we're denying ourselves basic comfort. Again, I think it goes back to the Buddha's teaching on the middle way and avoiding those two extremes of what is actually called practices that weary the body and mind, sometimes translated as self-mortification, but it can be anything that wearies the body and mind. So if we're too frugal, if we don't eat well, if we're always trying to save and we don't even buy warm clothes in a cold climate, then we can't really practice properly, actually. So the Buddha wants us to find comfort for our body to the extent that we can be at ease and then turn inside. And eventually, through the depth of meditation, let the body go, let the senses fade. So I think that might be part of it. So, okay, one more comment in the chat and then I'll come to you. Thank you for your patience with the billionaire comment. There was a divorce court lawyer interviewed on soft white underbelly and was trying to think of examples. It's a great channel for developing compassion, empathy, and exquisite tenderness. Thank you for that. Yeah, I'll come to Casey.
I also was just thinking about the frugality, like too much frugality. For me, I sometimes have found that it actually can feel like attachment in a different way, but like attachment to like saving enough. And it can feel like, yeah, like it still is almost like a kind of attachment to be overly frugal. Sometimes I find like, yeah, wanting to have enough or keep enough or not use too much. And it can sometimes come from fear or like this idea of, oh, I want to save this much money, which is just another kind of attachment. And then if you just keep saving and then you die and you haven't used your wealth, and then what were you saving for?
That's right. Yeah, because here it says this clansman or this person may even starve themselves, and that's not compassion, is it? That's not compassionate at all. And I think as well, related to that fear-based mentality means it can border on stinginess and attachment. And the Buddha's always saying we should also use our wealth for others, not only for ourselves, but for others too. So being too frugal might mean you're not practicing generosity to yourself or anyone else. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Okay, I think there's a general quality of balance which can perhaps be found between any two extremes, which is instructive for meditation. Whatever the balance is between, the mental experience is at least somewhat analogous. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So there's a sort of sweet spot in a way that is comfortable for the mind. The mind can relax. You feel kind of good about your life. You feel that you're living in a way that's aligned with the resources available, whether they're physical or financial or, spiritual perhaps as well. Energy, bodily energy, doing just enough exercise, not too much. Yeah, just enough attention in meditation. I wanted to say kind of effort, but that's just enough intention, not too much. Yeah, that we can find that balance by its effect on our mind. That's a really good point. Okay, we're actually on the last page now. What do you think? I don't know if we can actually finish up. Would you like to get through this sutta by just reading the last page, even if we might not have time to discuss it? Shall we do that for the sake of completion? The other book? What the other book? Why not? Okay. We're going to have 5 minutes.
All right. You want to do it? Shall we read on?
Yeah.
There are Vyagapadja, these 4 other things that lead to a layperson's welfare and happiness in future lives. What 4? Accomplishment in faith, accomplishment in virtuous behavior, accomplishment in generosity, and accomplishment in wisdom. And what is accomplishment in faith? Here, a layperson is endowed with faith. They place faith in the enlightenment of the Tathagata, the teacher,
The Buddha.
the Buddha. Thus, and we go to another book, which I should have found first. There it is. The Blessed One is accomplished, fully enlightened, perfect in true knowledge and conduct, sublime, knower of the worlds, incomparable, leader of persons to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, enlightened, blessed. What is this?
Yeah. So that's just filling in the ... dots in this particular sutta, but it's the same sutta.
This is called accomplishment in faith. And what is accomplishment in virtuous behavior? Here, a layperson abstains from the destruction of life, from taking what is not given, from sexual misconduct, from false speech, and from liquor, wine, and intoxicants, the basis for heedlessness. This is called accomplishment in virtuous behavior. And what is accomplishment in generosity? Here, a layperson dwells at home with a heart devoid of the stain of miserliness, freely generous, open-handed, delighting in relinquishment, one devoted to charity, delighted in giving and sharing. This is called accomplishment in generosity. And what is accomplishment in wisdom? Here, a layperson is wise. They possess the wisdom that discern arising and passing away, which is noble and penetrative and leads to the complete destruction of suffering. This is called accomplishment in wisdom. These are the 4 other things that lead to the welfare and happiness of a layperson in future lives. Do you want to read the verse?
Okay, then there's a little verse to end. So this is often a sort of addition to a sutta, maybe not quite as authentic, but it's a little summary, hopefully. Here we go. Enterprising in one's occupations, heedful in their arrangements, balanced in their way of living, they safeguard the wealth they earn. Endowed with faith, accomplished in virtue, charitable and devoid of miserliness, they constantly purify the path that leads to safety in future lives. Thus, these 8 qualities of the faithful seeker of the household life, in other words, the faithful person living the household life, are said by the one who is truly named, that's the Buddha, presumably, to lead to happiness in both states, that's this life and the next life, to the good and welfare in this very life, and to happiness in future lives. Thus, for those dwelling at home, their generosity and merit increase. So there we have the summary, and I really love that the last 4 were actually the how-to: be accomplished in faith, virtue, generosity, and wisdom. And really, in a sense, that answers the question as to why sort of being too frugal or too indulgent would not conduce to generosity, right? Would be a problem. And how we can define virtue and faith. So the faith, in brief, is the faith in the Buddha and in the enlightenment of the Buddha, which doesn't mean just that we have faith that the Buddha's enlightened, but we have faith in the fact that enlightenment is possible for us. This is the real key, that we have faith in the sense in our own potential to awaken to the truth. And of course, we have faith in the Dhamma, we have faith in the people who are practicing the path, which may include our own capacity to do so. So this is just one aspect of faith, but faith in the Buddha as being a person who has actually seen the truth is very important on the path. If not, then why should we listen to what he says, right? What is accomplishment in virtue? So these are the basic 5 precepts. So to abstain from taking life, taking what's not given, sexual misconduct, false speech, intoxicants that form the base for heedlessness. Is there one missing here? No, that's 5. But of course, there's also the opposites, which mean protecting life, being generous, being trustworthy, speaking in beautiful, true, beneficial ways, and developing a sense of clarity, of sobriety, of heedfulness, a basis for heedfulness. And then accomplishment in generosity. I love this one. I love these words. Dwelling at home with a heart devoid of the stain of miserliness. It's a stain. Freely generous, open-handed, delighting in relinquishment. That's to answer your point about being too frugal, is not being open-handed, it's holding on, it's not relinquishing. Devoted to charity, sharing one's resources, delighting in giving and sharing. And I think that's so beautiful because the word delight is there again and again. Generosity should bring us joy. And then accomplishment in wisdom. A person possesses the wisdom that discerns the arising and passing away. And that is of all phenomena, of every aspect of the body and mind, which is noble and penetrative and leads to the complete destruction of suffering. This is the direction the path must take towards the end of suffering. So I hope that this has been very helpful and very instructive for many of us here, and we can emulate some of these teachings. We can develop good friendships, veer away from bad companionship, or at least try not to let it occupy your mind. Try to bring up the good that you see in others and to leave the rest aside, and to talk and converse and discuss the Dhamma with good spiritual friends. So hopefully we've done some of that today, and I personally feel that it's always very beneficial to do so. So thank you so much. And yeah, I'm going to hand over to Manui to say a few words, and then I'll say, maybe if you just say your bit, and I'll say about, I'll say a kind of goodbye and about the upcoming teachings myself.
Yeah, and thank you, Venerable, and thank you, Anagārikā Upacālā, as well. So both of you double act really good. And so for me, I like to say a few words to all of us about dana, that is generosity. And giving develops wholesome qualities that form foundation of our Dhamma practice. And generosity can also be a practice of checking in deeply with us. So here at Anukampa, we offer several ways you can cultivate this beautiful quality of generosity. So I will tell the things that financial things, because not about the meals and so on, because Venerable is leaving for WhatsApp soon. You can do financial donations through the link that I put. You can do a one-time donation, any amount, whenever possible. When you click that link, it goes to our website. You can do a bank transfer, PayPal, or SumUp. You can do a regular donation if you're able, through standing orders, through your bank. Or you can, if you have any specialty that you can share with Anukampa, you can do volunteering. So you can contact team at anukampaproject.org and discuss with them. There is a needed items list as well. And when the Venerable is back and Anagārikas are back, then the Anukampa will need the meals and household items as well. We'll keep you updated.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you. Yes, it's a little sad to say that is the last Sutta class for a while, because we are going to be in our 3-month annual retreat. And tomorrow we do have a metta meditation, Saturday morning, UK time, 9 a.m. That's BST. And that will be the last online teaching I give until October. However, we have a wonderful program of bhikkhuni and bhikkhu teachers for the whole of the reigns. I have to announce the unfortunate news that our first Bhikkhuni teacher, Aya Adimuti, is down with COVID. So we were planning to start off on Sunday the 6th. That's 2 days' time. But unfortunately, that one won't happen. So the following week will be Bhante Sujato. So he's our honorary Bhikkhuni. Bhante Sujato is a bhikkhu, but he wouldn't mind being called an honorary Bhikkhuni, I think. So, yeah. So please check out our website and newsletter for the program. It's every week, every Sunday, either at 9 a.m. or at 7:30 p.m. because their time zones are different. So, but it's amazing. I don't know that there's any other channel where you can have a monastic teacher every single week, especially so many Bhikkhuni teachers. So in a way, it makes me feel very happy to go away. It makes me feel more supported by them, but also very happy for you that you have all that variety. And when I come back in October, then we'll start up this Sutta discussion again. I think the dates for October are already down. It's around the 17th of October to memory. Might be wrong. But yeah, I haven't given myself much time to get over my jet lag because I do enjoy these discussions very much and want to keep it alive. So we'll be seeing you soon, and do take care of yourselves, of each other, and of the community around you. I hope we see some of the people who came for the first time again. And in the meantime, yeah, join in with the other teachings. It's going to be nice. It'll be like half an hour meditation ish, half an hour Dharma talk ish, and then half an hour ish Q&A. So there'll be a bit of everything in that session for an hour and a half. Okay, so lots and lots of metta from the community here. Thank you for all your sweet messages, and see you later.